Alright, children, today we're going to tell you the story of Galileo.
Galileo was born on February 15th, 1564, and he was the oldest of 6 children. Later in life, he went on to the University of Pisa to study medicine.
And while he was there, eventually he was like, hey man, you see all this medicine stuff? It's pretty cool, right? But you look at this math and physics, this stuff's crazy. I want to do that instead. So he did that, and he was having a good old time. But then one day he was all, wait, where's my money? And he was broke. He was out of money just entirely. So he had to leave his college, and he just went on to do various teaching jobs to keep himself financially stable. And through these teaching jobs, these people, like everyone that watched him, was like, wow, this guy's really intelligent. So he gained like a lot of popularity from all his teaching.
He became fascinated with this thing called the telescope, but he thought, I think I could make this better. So he improved upon the telescope, and because of his improvement, he looked up at the moon and saw that the moon wasn't just a two-dimensional figure. It was more of a 3D object with craters and mountains and all that fancy stuff. He also invented the spyglass used by pirates, the thermometer, and he sketched and designed ideas for the microscope.
Right, so then Galileo was done inventing things, and he's like, hey, I want to start discovering things. And he learned about this guy named Aristotle, and was like, you see this guy Aristotle? He's totally wrong in all of his discoveries. Why is this? He noticed that Aristotle believed that everything revolved around the earth, and Galileo was like, nah, dude, you see that yellow thing in the sky that we call the sun? We revolve around that. Then there were other things like water buoyancy. Aristotle believed that the flatter an object was, the more buoyant it would be. And then Galileo was like, no, it's clearly the weight of the object that influences the buoyancy of it. And then he also noticed this force called friction, and he was looking through all of Aristotle's stuff, and Aristotle didn't study it at all. And Galileo was like, how did he miss this such a great force that stops big objects and lets smaller objects go? I mean, how can you miss such a great thing like this? And then everyone around him was like, dude, are you talking smack on Aristotle? He's a cool dude. Why would you do that? And then Galileo was like, you know what? I have a telescope. I don't need friends. So he went and just started looking up into the sky, and he noticed the moons of Jupiter, and he saw phases of Venus, and just other cool stuff involving stars and planets.
After this, Pope Urban VIII was all like, hey man, I see all this cool stuff that you're doing, and like, you need to keep doing all this cool stuff that you're doing. I don't care what Aristotle or the church says. Aristotle's a bit... Anyway. The people of the church were all like, hey, Galileo, like, we see what you're doing, like, that's cool and all, but we're gonna stick with Aristotle, because he's right and you're wrong, and if you keep doing what you're doing, we're gonna put you on trial. After that, Galileo was all like, no, why would I stop? And the church was like, okay, we'll just put you on trial and torture you. And then Galileo finally broke. He was like, okay, that's fine. I believe in the Copernicus theory. You can torture me all you want. And then the church was all like, are my ears deceiving? Did you really just say that? And then they convicted him of heresy and put him under house arrest for the rest of his life.
And then Galileo was like, whatever, you can put me on house arrest. I'm going to keep doing me. And then it came to be that his current telescope wasn't good enough, so he created a bigger and badder telescope. And he's like, wow, that sun thing up there, that looks really cool. So he started studying that real close with his brand new telescope, and he noticed that the sun wasn't perfect. He's like, wow, why are there all these spots all over the sun? Oh man, I'm blind. Galileo went blind later in his life from looking at the sun too much. He then fell ill, and I mean, probably couldn't do much about it because it was the 1500s and he was blind, and I mean, like, he died. Galileo just died later in life, like most people do. And that was the story of Galileo. He's a pretty cool guy. It's whatever.
But you running